Hello to all of you collectors and investors. Happy Hump Day. We're calling this segment of the Wealth Curated Vlog Dialed In. That's a horology reference. We're looking at watches today. Interesting discussion I watched earlier today with a 40-minute interview with Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, a guy that's made a lot of money in a lot of different financial sectors, and he is an avid collector of watches. And some of the principles he was talking about were very akin, as is the case for most collectible categories, to rare coins, fine art, across the board comics. These principles are key if you're going to have success as a collector, and if you view yourself as a collector investor, these become especially important. First principle, I talk a lot about this, I've written a lot about it. It's all about story. Collecting, whether it's Kevin O'Leary and his vast watch collection, or art collectors of note, coin collectors of note, it comes down to our desire, our fascination to be part of human stories. Whether you're collecting things from centuries ago or modern craftsmanship that is just on another level, it's all part of the human story. It's human art. Human art is a part of the human story. That's fundamental. That's what drives collecting. So you have to be collecting what you love, what you're drawn to in your human story and your appreciation for the human story at large. So that love of human story, the human art form, is really the primary motivation for all of us. But Kevin O'Leary talked about a number of other things that are critically important. The first of which is history. One fascinating thing to study, honestly, and people don't really consider and understand this in terms of the grand scheme of education, but the understanding and the study of time has been as consequential, more consequential even than things like the internet, the industrial age. When we became students of time and the significance of time in the human experiment, things really changed around the world. So horology has been something that scholars, philosophers, even theologians have studied. And it's interesting to me that there's this massive movement currently. It's been there for a while, but currently this massive movement to collect watches again. And we're seeing astonishing appreciation. It's happening from collectors in China, investors in China. Kevin O'Leary talked a lot about this. We saw this in the coin market about a dozen or so years ago, when Chinese investors were coming over and buying up proof gold, unlike anything we had ever seen. But it's because of their appreciation for history and the artistry behind the watches. So history is important. Desirability. How many people collect a certain segment of watches? This applies to coins, whether you're collecting proof gold, whether you're collecting branchment gold, or just marquee coins. The desirability factor goes a long way in terms of that long-term appreciation. And the enduring legacy of brands is a really important factor in watch collecting, whether it's Patek, Audemars, Rolex. The brand's significance in the history of horology is a really important factor. Pedigree, which you know is important in rare coins. Who has owned the coin before? What is the lineage of ownership? Pedigree is actually important in watches. So, for example, Kevin told a story today about Vladimir Putin being seen wearing a particular watch, an F.P. Journe watch. And as soon as it was known that he had an interest in them, the desire for that watch just skyrocketed. And they're very tough to get. As we do in the world of rare coins, variations are important. Coin collectors know the importance of collecting die varieties. In the watch world, it's all about dials. So from one given watchmaker, Rolex, for example, even within one particular kind of watch specific under that maker, people would try and collect the various dials, whether it's a white dial or a black dial, the baby blue dial, whatever it may be. All those things are critically important. But the overarching emphasis is set building. We do this in coins, whether we're collecting 14 coin US gold sets. We may collect a particular artist and everything that artist has painted, for example. Or if you're into rare instruments, you're always looking for a particular instrument that a particular artist crafted. In the world of watches, this set building idea, one of the baseline starting points for a big collector is collecting all the Rolexes before you move on to some of the more exotic things. When you're building things with intentionality, building a set, then you always know what your next step is. That's really helpful in the world of watches. And then knowing the details of the craftsmanship, the movements, the makers, again, what kind of people, what kind of collectors have found them desirable. And so you have all these factors that go together to get a collector like Kevin O'Leary, who describes his interest as absolutely insatiable. He references it as being a virus or a disease. His wife will often tell him he needs help because he wears 3 or 4 watches a day. And he wears interesting to note, I think that the details in excellence for guys like Kevin O'Leary, not just with respect to their collection, but how they live their lives. He's so detail-oriented with the details of his watches. You may notice on Shark Tank, he only wears watches with a red band. It's because of the TV visibility and his wardrobe particulars. But he is absolutely committed to understanding the details of watches, watchmakers, their histories, and the variations. All these things combined all contribute to a growing sense of that love and respect that you have for the human story and the collector sort of focus you may have. Science tells us that the average collector collects 2 to 3 things very aggressively and very passionately, but it all comes down to passion. Buy what you love, hold on to it for the long term, and in the end, it will become a legacy that perhaps the next generation can enjoy just as much as you did. That's horology. That's dialed in for the day. Hope those tips are helpful. We'll see you next time.